All right, we are starting now. Welcome to the first Mochi Podcast, our Mochi Podcast, the only podcast rated R for Robin. Today we are here with Ariana. I actually don't know your last name. Can you hear me?
I can't hear anything.
Let's see.
Oh, there we go.
Better? Cool.
Yeah, I was like, the mouth is moving.
Sorry.
He's smiling. I hear nothing.
Yeah,
it's like,
I just muted the audio. Yeah, I'm going to have to figure out how to, streamline this shit at some point. But it seems like it's recording our audio. Ariana, welcome to our Mochi Podcast. Thank you for being my first guest.
hey.
How goes it?
It'll be hard for anyone to follow me.
Whatever.
It goes well. Let's see how this goes.
Indeed. So before we actually started, we were talking about fucking MMA. Sorry to immediately to start the magic show and immediately reveal the fucking trick that was happening. Just pull out the sheets.
Yeah, I thought it was just to build up to it.
Yeah.
Plot twist, big sports girl. No, I'm just kidding. No, we were talking about MMA and other forms of fighting and or sports, I guess we could also say, not just fighting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have a newfound appreciation for the technique involved in UFC. And
if you are interested in actually trying to learn any of it, I could recommend different like styles that would be fun to try.
Sure. Like what?
I'd go with
Are they things that you learn on your I feel like I would have to go into a studio, right? Which I will say the Taekwondo studio on my corner is open with masks. There's little children that do Taekwondo every day.
I would start with
I
would start with either boxing or Muay Thai.
Okay.
Just because those are the most prevalent stand-up styles that people go with. And then for ground game, you either go Greco-Roman wrestling or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh God.
Yeah,
I took a boxing class once. I was really sore after it.
Was it a sport boxing or learning to fight and beat people up?
No,
boxing?
It was a trendy, go to the boxing ring, mixed workout class with boxing, as part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the first time I had actually put on gloves and punched a punching bag.
Yeah, it's funny. You kind of got to actually learn how to do that.
Yeah, no, it's really hard, and it involves so many muscles that just I didn't know, I didn't have. It's I probably have them somewhere, but they're vastly underdeveloped. And so I was sore, and it was a 45-minute class, but I just remember walking the next day I couldn't move my arms, and my honestly it was the muscles
mm-hmm.
under in your rib cage. It was wild. Yeah. So I also want to try kickboxing though, because I do feel my legs are my strongest.
Yeah, so Muay Thai is a form of kickboxing, and I would say most boxing places do some sort of integration with kickboxing. Just because you always have to do footwork in some capacity, and
right.
Just knowing how to throw a quick roundhouse kick is really effective. Taekwondo is also cool, but at the same time, it's harder to land a lot of the fancier stuff. You really got to get down for as far as practicality goes. It's more about learning the core shit, and Muay Thai is just all about. It's the epitome of the thing. I fear the person who has practiced one kick 500 times and has practiced 500 kicks one time.
Totally. Yeah.
And it's about just fucking kicking a tree down. It just takes forever, and yeah, it's fucking hardcore. All right.
Well, yeah, everyone go out and do some workouts.
All right, so that's a great start, I think, to our conversation.
We're just really happy Conor McGregor lost.
Fuck yeah.
I don't know about I'm very happy. That's what started the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a great, interesting start to 2021.
That it was literally That's exactly actually what I said. Like when they were like going in, like when they both were walking into the ring, I was like, come on, 2021, like give us something. Like let us like just like continue to defeat darkness in 2021.
Well, we started out
like,
with a riot. I mean,
we did, but then we had a successful inauguration. No one was assassinated. I was genuinely afraid that we were going to have mass assassination. We did not.
I'm so happy Bernie Sanders like came out of it as the meme of the day.
Of course he did. And then everyone, he was like, I love his response to everything. He was like, we have real work to do. Support your small businesses in Vermont. And I'm like,
this is funny. Support your small businesses. They need it.
Yeah. I watched an interview with Bernie actually it came up on my YouTube like recommendations. I spend honestly most of my time watching YouTube videos.
Yeah, me too.
And it came up as like a recommendation, and it was an interview for him right after he won mayor of Burlington, like back in the 80s.
1981. I think that's what I've seen that video too.
Okay, but it was incredible because they're like he looks exactly the same. He sounds exactly the same. His talking points are exactly the same. Like the consistency.
He has not discovered hair gel in the 20, 30 years since then.
Well, yeah,
he's been preaching the exact same thing. He's been on the lectern for decades.
Which I love.
Yeah.
I think I respect a lot, especially given how flip-floppy politics are and like how you like cater to audiences and like you are disingenuous and you have like your, what is it called? Like when you like spin and like whatever. And like the fact that Bernie literally has the exact same talking points, did not deviate, just didn't stutter, still doesn't.
I do not spin.
Do I love Bernie Sanders? Like, am I a socialist?
You're a Bernie girl, unfortunately.
But I do love Bern. I feel the burn.
Yeah, like he's a good dude. He's like one of the few like figures in politics that, if he is like a role model to you, I can't really blame you for,
Right. Yeah, he's like the anti-politician, or maybe in that capacity, he is like what a politician should be.
The way I described him throughout all 2020 and like through the primary and shit, like he is a unicorn, and it is up to the American people to seize that unicorn and drink its blood, because it'll make America like so much more sustainable for so long. I mean,
when you said "Make America," literally I heard "Great Again" and I just almost vomited. Isn't that bad? That association, "Make America," like okay.
But yeah,
no, I agree. I think well, and I think he would want his blood to be had.
I will give my blood for the American people.
Like, yeah, because he wants us to drink the fucking Kool-Aid, but we won't. Wait,
what?
He burned he want his Kool-Aid being his blood. Like I think he wants us to like capitalize on all the things he is saying. Like he would want us to like take advantage of him and to like put his policies.
I think the cult tie-in with the implication of drinking the Kool-Aid, like,
we all say things like cold things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this is Mochi talking about, right? Cold Mochi.
My brother did found QAnon. Fun fact.
Yeah. Fact. Gabriel Tumlos is the founder. Gabriel Ian, one of the two. We don't know.
He also helped write the 4 Gospels, believe it or not. Yeah. Do you know anything about has he explained to you like the whole like his whole like fetish with like the letter Q?
Not like I don't know the reasoning. Mm-hmm. No, actually, I just know that it's a thing, and that when we see Qs, we take pictures and send them to him, or
That's cute.
Yeah, I don't. It's cute with a Q.
He's a cutie.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the reason why. Do you?
I've discussed it with him a couple times. Like,
tell us.
There's just like a bunch of. Especially within the Latin alphabet, the Q is like one letter that is kind of unique from like its Greek roots, its Greco whatever roots, and like the Q kind of like shows up in a lot of like weird contexts, and it's very frequently like this mysterious figure that's kind of like leading things in history, like so like this anonymous source for 2 of the 4 Gospels, because like supposedly I think it was like John and Luke. It was John and Mark.
Matthew.
No, it was John and Mark, I believe, that wouldn't have actually been written around the time that Jesus was born or lived. And so supposedly they got it from this mysterious source Q.
What?
Yeah. Whereas like the other two were
that's
written.
Gabe, and Gabe is Q.
Yeah, definitely.
Gabe.
He's eternal. He's in that same species
He's eternal.
as Keanu Reeves.
Oh my gosh, let's change subject so that Gabe doesn't think this podcast is about him. This is not a Gabe fan podcast.
Fair enough.
This is a Mochi podcast. We're not gonna blow up the ego anymore.
So you're what's your team in Mochi? Who did you start with? Because you're not in an active journey, you said.
I'm not in an active journey. I think I started. I don't know my like original start. The team I can remember is Maggie Love and Sarah Durlacher, and we've been a team for feels like years now. We've been a team for years. Yeah, but I think that's been my team. I don't know, because I can't really pinpoint when I started doing Mochi, when I started my journeys, or in like who the original team was. I don't know, but Sarah and Maggie. But yeah, I decided not to journey this recent go round, but always with them, and yep, that's the team.
How do you feel like
we all used to work together at Consensus.
How do you feel like the growth and like change has been over like the past year or so? So I got on like middle of last year with my friend from college, and we just kind of do the journey stuff. We haven't really been participating in clubs much. Like if you got on earlier and you knew more of the people that were originally in Mochi, how would you say it's kind of like changed since then? Like with the new batches, you've been going to like the parties and meetups and whatever.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty much. I mean, not completely different. The goals, obviously, like setting the structure, the questions that get asked, that's the same. That's always been the same. We used to not have a website, so like I remember like when it was literally like you just had Slack, and then all of a sudden like we had websites, and then like the staking and like the little, like I remember when we launched the website and they had the little like Mochi things, and you could pick a team and you could pick your icon color, and like that was so exciting. Like
what flavor did you go with? Do you remember?
No, I haven't logged onto the website in so long. I am not the Mochi. Like I'm not.
You're not the Mochiest.
I'm not the Mochiest. Well, I have said this, and I will stand by this. I don't do. I'll probably regret this. But like I don't do Mochi like really even for the goals or like for the tokens. I just like the people.
I mean, that's technically kind of what a club eventually comes down to.
Yeah, and I think like that for me, like it's like that was like the selling point. Now the fact that I will say what's a big change for me, which may be a contentious thing to say, and whatever, fuck it, is that like the expansion beyond our friend group has been definitely challenging. Which like not that I don't like the new people, I just don't know them, and so like
you hear that she doesn't like you guys.
Yeah, I know. Like I'm saying this on a Mochi podcast, but no, it's kind of like I think the original like sort of obviously the idea was to scale it to a club, right? That and like it has to have a sustainable business model. It's now shifting to a business, which like I remember we had a conversation, maybe like a couple of years ago or something, where it was kind of like a town hall type thing, and it's like, okay, like is this a club? Is it a bit like what is it? And it's like okay, if it's going to be a business, then like we have to like bring on. We have to find ways of making it sustainable. And I definitely think
were you part of that discussion team or like?
Yeah. It was like an open thing.
Okay.
And so like we basically we like did kind of this like mind mapping of like what can we all bring to the table and like what direction we want to go and yada yada yada. And like I think for me, like I'm very protective of spaces that I feel safe in, and Mochi, like the kind of core. So like the group of us that like went to Japan and like went to our friend Kyle's wedding and like all used to work together, and like we've kind of like been in the trenches, like the Consensus trenches together, and like did these experiences together. And then like I'm very protective of that group, and then sometimes I do get scared. I'm like, oh no, is it gonna get like diluted? Am I gonna like lose my people? But like obviously not, because like that's not what this is. But there's a growing that's happening. It's like a growing pain, right? It's kind of like consensus even was, because I remember like consensus went from a few hundred people to like 1,000, and it was like
yeah. And then there's like a big change in like the culture where it used to be much more of like a creative open space for like, this sounds like a cool project, this sounds like a cool project, this sounds like a cool project. And now there's like so much more
it's just like corporate.
Yeah. But like,
yeah, it's like, don't contribute, which is not what this is. Like, that's not like that's not the Mochi comparison, I would say. I mean, but it is interesting. Like, you know,
you got that club xenophobia in you.
No, I have trust issues. But no, like, even like, you know, the Slack channel used to be really vibrant. We used to get into some like vibrant conversations, you know, that like weren't even disagreements, they were just dialogues. And I feel like that's died out, because I feel like I don't know why that's died out, but I feel like either people like don't want to spam the new people, or the new people don't know how to engage in these like maybe somewhat intimate and like personal like conversations. Like, and so like it's strange. Like the general channel is now more about like announcements, whereas like before, like we used to get into like heated conversations that were like really fun for me, and like I felt like I was growing closer to people, and now it doesn't feel like that's
really I get the feeling like
like
that's more or less being relegated to like the channel spaces.
Yeah, but like even so, I guess like late stage capitalism probably is like where a lot of those conversations are happening.
Yeah, this is a fun microcosm of late stage capitalism.
I know, I love it. Like, and like, but the thing is, it's like you look at the channels and like there's very few people in the channels themselves, and like sometimes like I wonder, like, do people even know about the channels? Like, do they know how to engage with it? Are they here really just for the journey? Like, I don't know.
Would you say that you've met many of the new people in like either the last batches or, you know?
No, I haven't. I've met the Tumla siblings. Those are the ones that I like, the new people. I guess that's not true. The batch that we brought on, the first new batch, the very, very first new batch, which we brought on last summer, I met because I would say there was a bit more, they were like friends of like Gabe's or friends of like other people. So it was kind of like the concentric circle, kind of like the acquaintances.
There's only like 1 degree of separation, more or less.
Right. And then so like people would come on and be like, oh, this is my, like, we went to college together. Oh, this. And then I would say people were a lot more involved in the clubs, like the meditation club, the movie club, whatever, because also it was like peak quarantine, right, where we all were trapped in our houses and couldn't do anything. And so I think a lot of us depended heavily upon Mochi for that social interaction.
Yeah, it was actually like the perfect space for Mochi to kind of grow in, you know?
Totally. And I loved it. And it like definitely served its purpose. But I think now that it's like wherever you are, it might be a different, you know, kind of case, like re-quarantine. But I definitely think like, you know, I haven't seen as many new people on some of these activities, because like for them, maybe it's not about, or maybe it's not about those activities for them, or maybe they don't know about those clubs. Like maybe they literally just know about the journeys, or they just want to do the journey, and like, or they just want tokens, like Mochi tokens, or like whatever.
So like my friend, he doesn't know anything about crypto, and I was just like, hey, you want to do this, like goal setting thing? He's like, hey, yeah, totally, goals. I helped him get like the first crypto stuff. Technically, he's already gotten, there's already been plenty of return on like that first like 0.25 ether. So, you know.
Oh yeah.
But like aside from just like the reporting thing, there's been like really no motivation to kind of get into any of the other clubs, and there's no really been like pulling in benefits of it. I don't know if he's done any of like the letter to self stuff. I should remind my friend. He's got a perfect reporting score so far.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Fucking
I don't
nerd.
know if this is the form. Turn it. It's like first we talk about Gabe only, then we only talk about critiques of Mochi. What else? Like critical asshole Ariana.
What do you think specifically about your former workplace?
I know. Plead the fifth. Next question.
Movies.
Mochi team, I love you. I just want to say that.
Way to cover your ass.
As James Baldwin would say, I critique because I love.
Yeah, I was listening to like some guys talk about like Dragon Ball Z, and they made an entire YouTube channel around like kind of like telling jokes and making fun of it, and like when they got into conversations, like talking about things that they had problems with the TV show. One of the people who was like listening to it was like, man, listening to you guys talk about it, it sounds like you guys hate this show. But like in reality, you kind of gotta like know enough about the thing and love it to have like well-formed hate comments, as opposed to just like, you know, kind of being a hater and shitting on things.
Totally. I mean, that's literally how I felt about consensus, how I feel. I don't hate Mochi by any means. But no, I've thought deeply about it. I spent a lot of time thinking about it. I mean, I maybe get to, like, I had a moment where I cried because I had this moment of loss.
Wait, like Mochi
like,
or
no,
consensus?
Mochi's changing.
Oh.
What? Oh no, I cried a lot at consensus. That place traumatized the fuck out of me.
Oh boy.
No, but I cried about Mochi. No, because I was just sort of like, oh no, like these people, because like I used to post like highly personal stuff in the channels, you know, and because it was like it felt like my besties, you know, and it felt like a safe space. And then it's like, okay, wait, actually, I don't know these people, so I feel like I'm not going to have that. And then it's like, oh my gosh, am I still going to have this space? And it's like, obviously, those conversations are going to be relegated to, you know, private channels or to, you know, WhatsApp groups. Again, because it's like, it's Mochi and like the best friends used to be like one and the same, and now it's kind of like getting a bit distilled, which is totally fine. I want Mochi to grow and succeed, and so now it's just like, okay, then we offline the friend piece, and it's like, obviously I'm friend. And just like Mochi's not going to be my best friend.
Short tangent. In college, did you have any interaction with like Greek life at all?
I was in a sorority.
I was in a fraternity. This really, like, what's happening with Mochi, is as you describe it, sounds a lot like, you know, kind of getting new people to join in, especially in your later years.
Totally.
Where like,
except I say the difference between, which I have, this is again one of my points of my what is the
contention?
I lost my vocabulary, my big vocabulary word. Yeah, contention. I was like contingency. I was like, one of my contingency points, definitely not contingency, contention, is that we as members, if this is a Greek life organization, when you are in chapter, you get to vote on who gets inducted, and you can have vetoes, and someone has to stand up and pitch for a person and be like, this person is incredible, or someone has to stand up and be like, this person fucking sucks, they're toxic, get them out, and then you blindly vote. We right now, as members of Mochi, do not have that
That
power.
is actually, I believe, one of the things in the works with the Mochi tokens.
I think it is very important that we, in order to preserve the culture of Mochi, which I think is very important, because if we lose the culture of Mochi, we have no Mochi. We do have to have a point where it is not just dear Gabriel making the selections, but the process is transparent, and that members have a say and feel like they have a vested interest in stake. Because like, if you are a part of something that you care deeply about, then all of a sudden there's like 20 new people, and you're like, who the fuck are those people? No offense to the new people, I don't know you. And then like, you're going to come into this and like, what if you're like a psycho? Like, what if you're an asshole?
That is like an interesting thing. It's like,
what if you did something to someone in the group, right? Like that sounds extreme, but it's like, what if you like harass someone online? Like, the crypto space is wild, and it's like, if we're targeting crypto people, like some crypto people are really not good people. And like, do we want those people in Mochi? I don't know. But it's like, if you don't know, like, I feel like a really good example is like, you know, you get a super crypto type bro who is a fucking dick to women in crypto. And if you're a guy, you probably don't know it because a girl has probably never spoken up about it. Then like, and then the women are like, oh, this guy's in the group now. It's like, who let him in the group? But it's like, I feel like we need safeguards.
Yeah,
you know?
It very much sounds like the Greek kind of like system, like the elected officials and like the positions. It's just, as far as, you know, with crypto, the whole,
I don't even know who the elected officials are. It's like, what, Gabe, and then we have the Mochi team, but like, does Tyler or Kyle have a say in who gets like inducted, or is it really just Gabe? We don't answer.
But like the whole concept of like decentralization, giving everybody the vote, especially like in Greek life, I guess there was still like the higher like nationals and shit.
Yeah, but I feel like they don't really play a role.
They do it when it comes to like donor money and shit, but like,
oh yeah, but not like selections and of like new members. Yeah, PNMs, potential new members.
What sorority were you in?
Kappa.
Oh, KKG. We had one of those at my university.
Kappa.
Flash your gang sign.
Kind of like the, yeah, I know, literally 1, 2, 3 gang sign. What were you?
Acacia. It's the only like full Greek word fraternity. They have like big chapters and.
Oh, That's cool.
Yeah. The Greek.
What hand sign was that?
Fucking. So we like our symbol was a 3-4-5 right triangle. So I guess like.
Fascinating.
Uh,
I've never heard of one of those. That's kind of
what
cool.
university did you went to?
A full Greek name. Vanderbilt.
Yeah, there was a big chapter at U of I. There was a pretty small chapter at Illinois Wesleyan. They've got chapters in like Canada and stuff too. So technically we're international, but
interesting. Yeah. What are Canadian frats like?
Oh, sorry. Maple whiskey and everything.
Yeah,
they don't use frat paddles. They use like hockey sticks for shit.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, when you asked me, I think earlier a question about movies, and then I started ranting about Mochi. Sorry.
I mean, there was a movie club in Mochi. What movies would you say you've like watched most recently that you have strong opinions of one way or another?
I've been delinquent in attending any of the club conversations lately.
Yeah, I have the problem of being on the other side of the world, so I can't make most things.
That's a good excuse. I don't really have a good excuse besides being. Actually, that's not true. I'm in an organization. I run an alumni organization, and we, for some reason, the cadence of our meetings used to be every other Sunday, so it would alternate with Mochi.game, and then something happened. My board's been terrible, and the meetings got shifted, and they now fall on Mochi.game days. Which today's a Mochi.game day. Happy Mochi.game day. And I actually have a board meeting tonight, and I'm debating skipping and or multitasking because I want to watch a movie because I haven't done it since probably July or August, which is really sad because I used to be every week. That's pretty loyal. I will say Mochi.plex, or I guess it's Quarantine and Chill. Mochi.plex is a Slack channel, but Quarantine and Chill is what we used to call it, which was great. I was introduced to Ingmar Bergman, the director, and I would say like I'm a cinephile in the sense of like appreciating, not necessarily like I pick someone and I studied them and I was a film major. It's like no, I have like a really deep appreciation for like really well made films, like particularly when it comes to like I pay closest attention to cinematography and score. Like those are the two most important things to me. Script. I honestly don't need a script in a film. Like the fewer words, the better for me. So like I love and can appreciate. Like I used to I was part of the in college we had a local, so Vanderbilt in Nashville, we had a local like independent film theater, cinema, whatever. And we had a partnership where we would get emails, so, like we'd get free tickets, but like you didn't get to pick the movie. It just was like free ticket to this random film, and then you just go. And I would do that like every weekend. I'd go by myself, and then sometimes there'd be like double headers, and I would just like.
Oh, it's awesome! It's awesome to watch a movie kind of by yourself, you know.
I'm an only child, so I love doing things by myself, and also I found that like a lot of my friends in college didn't appreciate film the way I did, and weren't as interested, and so I was like, fuck it, like I'm just gonna do it myself. And like it was like the best Saturday or Sunday would be just like sitting at the Belcourt, like watching these movies. But anyway, that's my love of film. Ingmar Bergman, I think it might have been Gabe who introduced the first Ingmar Bergman
He's
film.
He's definitely some sort of type of cinephile.
He totally. Which I sort of am becoming in the sense of like, so
I'm more of that for like video games, not as much in the movies.
Yeah, well, I mean, for like things like designers, like fashion designers or musicians, like artists, I used to go on these like holes where like I listen to a song, be like, oh my gosh, I love this song, and then I'd go and I'd listen to all the songs and I'd read everything about the artist, and I'd watch all of their interviews, and then I would basically become a little like expert on that artist, and then would be like, I stand. Same thing like fashion designers, whatever. I'm starting to do the same thing with directors, which is pretty cool. So like I had a moment the other day where like I don't really watch TV. I can't really get into TV. I get bored. My attention span, nothing can hold my attention span, honestly, these days. But I was like, I want to watch something. Like, but I want it to like not be an assault on my senses. And I don't want to be annoyed by, again, the way it's filmed or like scripted. And so I was like, what should I watch? Love international films. I've always appreciated international anything more than, like domestic produced things, honestly. Film, whatever. Because I love traveling. But I turned on HBO has the Turner Classic Movies Hub, HBO Max. And I went onto the international page and they had a bunch of Ingmar Bergman films. I was like, oh my God. So they had Persona, and I rewatched Persona. And I was like, wow.
Is this in any way related to the video game or like anime? Or is this just like a different thing? I mean, Persona seems like a generic enough name.
Totally. I mean, yeah, probably. Like, this is like a 1960s avant-garde, Swedish
I swear to God,
film.
I've heard the name Ingmar Bergman, but like probably from a cartoon, and it was just like really dismissive.
He's made like hundreds of films and is like one of apparently the most like renowned directors. And I then went and watched a bunch of his other films. So like I had watched Autumn Sonata over the summer because it was on Plex, which is like one of his other ones. And then I watched another one. I've just been kind of like working my way through a lot of his films, and I'm like, then I got really into it, started reading things about him. So that's been really fun. But that came from Mochi Plex. But yeah, and I mean, definitely like the great thing is, and like I introduced, there's been a couple of films that I've liked that like I've proposed that have been played, which has been cool. Like one of them was like a Senegalese film that debuted at Cannes. That was really cool. And then I would say it's funny at the beginning of Mochi Plex or like Quarantine and Chill, it was a lot of Asian films, which I think comes from like Gabe and Tyler's. I think like they have a tendency to like skew that way in their interests. Whereas like a lot of the films like I watch are like
Tyler's white,
French
right?
films or African films. Yes, but he grew up in Hong Kong.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. Surprise!
That's whatever.
Like, so there's like connection there, like experience, lived experience. It definitely was good exposure for me because like I don't again in the films or like I watch like films from India because I lived in India for a long time, or not for a long time, for a little bit of time, but I've been obsessed with India for a long time. So I watch like Indian films, like Bollywood films, and then African films just because I think like the African continent needs more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My wife's been on a lot of like Korean movies, TV shows recently.
Wow, K-dramas. I watched a K-drama series that it was so cheesy, but I loved it, and it
the
made
weirdest
me
thing. So like I don't watch them with her, but she watches them and they're all dubbed, but they're all dubbed in Russian. So it's a bunch of Korean people dubbed in Russian.
Jesus.
What?
I just said Jesus. That seems intense. Like I can't even picture what. That's so cool.
Something else I've noticed, like all of the most of the voices, there aren't like too many dubbers in who speak Russian and like know how to read Korean and stuff, and so a lot of the dubbers are like the same voices in like a bunch of different shows, and like there are like times when there are these kids who are talking, so like the kids' voices are still there. They're still like I don't speak Korean, whatever, but. Then there's like the Russian voice over it is like, yes, you got to. I'm just like, hold up.
That's amazing. That's really funny. I don't watch them dubbed actually. I've heard that like they can be good when they're dubbed, but I watch them with subtitles because I like the sound of Korean. I find it very soothing.
I'd say like the only Korean thing I've watched by Parasite, which is really good.
Oh. Phenomenal. Train to Busan, which was introduced in Quarantine and Chill, which is a Korean zombie film. It's really funny. So I was on a train last weekend and to Connecticut with like a group of my friends just for like the long weekend. And we were waiting on the train station and like it was like, boarding, but there was no train there. And which is like usually pretty strange for like an Amtrak. Like I feel like for like like the Metro North or like these other kind of like more like regional trains
usually
that's like
on
pretty standard. Yeah, Amtrak is usually on point. And so it was like boarding, and I like kind of got a little freaked out because it also was like pre-inauguration weekend, and Amtrak sent this like weird warning, and I was like, oh my god, like
you had to run full force at like one of like the pillar walls and shit.
Right. Yeah, the platform 3 and 4 quarters.
I wonder if they got fucking announcements like in that in that train station from like, what the fuck's going 3 and 4 quarters?
But I was like waiting on the platform and it was like boarding. And then I had this hysterical moment where I was like, I looked at the girls and like, I didn't know if anyone was going to get this reference. Cause like we had been joking the whole weekend about my like weird taste in movies, aka my cultured taste in movies.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, okay guys, a train pulls up, the doors open and it's all zombies. Like, what do you do? Which is the synopsis of Train to Busan. And it was so funny because one of the girls goes, Train to Busan, and I was like, Train to Busan, and it was just like hysterical.
Just like staring at her like
yeah. I know. It was so funny though, because we were just like, and then the girls were like, what? And I was like, a Korean zombie train film. And they were like, Ariana, watch normal movies. And I was like, you just need to be more cultured in your films. So, but yeah, Train to Busan was a well-made zombie film, because I feel like American zombie films can be freaking cheesy.
Yeah, and
these were like
they've kind of gone the same route of like Call of Duty zombies, like just zombie video games.
Yeah, but the very, and I'm like, okay, like this is, but yeah, Train to Busan is one. What is it? There's another one that I'm supposed to watch but Mochi Plex, International Films, go see them now. Yeah, there's one tonight. I need to go watch it.
Yeah, this isn't live, just so you know. Like, it's probably going to be released.
It might be a Korean. Yeah, I was like, oh, it's not live.
It's probably going to be released tomorrow-ish or something. Like, yeah. So belated, belated happy Mochi Plex night.
Belated happy Mochi Plex.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of like Miyazaki films, the Studio Ghibli ones. They're very pretty, but
really never watch them.
None of them.
Yeah.
No, like Spirited Away, Ponyo, My Neighbor Totoro.
I think none of those, which I know I should.
I think my brother mentioned.
And have been bullied about that. I
think my brother mentioned like
one was watched.
It was Porco Rosso.
Yes, that was fun. Would I go and watch a bunch of them after? No.
It's so sorry. The animation's beautiful, and like the score is also always fantastic. The stories very often are very hit or miss for me. I think I've got like 2 or 3 more to go. The last one I watched was Howl's Moving Castle. I think next one is.
See, I've heard about them.
Yeah, they're all pretty famous.
Yeah.
I'd say like the most. So like the first one, Laputa Castle in the Sky. That movie is fucking amazing.
Okay.
It is. It's like.
You say.
Say again.
I said if you say so. You said it with like conviction.
Yeah. Do you?
Like, oh, okay.
Are you much of a gamer? Do you play video games at all?
I wasn't allowed as a kid. My mom said they were bad for your brain, and now I'm game stunted because I don't know how to use a damn controller. Now I just avoid
that's a muscle you actually need to learn as a kid, I would say.
No, I know. It's like fucking coordination. I watch my friends and I'm like, I don't think I can get that now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but I wish my mother did not ban me from that.
Yeah.
But
it's like preventing a kid from like reading, you know?
Yeah. No, it's silly. But she was a first time mom. She didn't know.
Yeah. But Laputa Castle in the Sky, it's like playing it through an entire RPG in like 1-2 hour sitting, and like you don't actually have to play anything. All of the different scenes are just so radically different from each other. There's like constantly motion and action going on. There's constantly like new story elements being introduced. The music's awesome. The character designs are clever enough to like keep you interested. There's like sky pirates. The technology and magic is like, it's like playing through Final Fantasy, like Final Fantasy X.
Oh, okay. So, funny you did mention that video game. I had a stepdad, my first stepdad, which was 2005 to 2008. He was a big gamer, and my mom and him used to get in fights because he had like a man cave, and he would play video games in his man cave. And the video games he would play were Final Fantasy. So I would watch him play Final Fantasy. I don't remember which. I'm really bad. There's so many of them, but yes, I remember watching that and being like, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen."
Then I think you'd like. I think you'd like Castle in the Sky.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, Final Fantasy. I missed that. It was so pretty, but I always just like wanted to play them. My mom would be like, "Get out of there!" Be like,
"Get a game on Steam. They're usually on sale." My brother.
I know, but I don't know how.
So the nice thing about Final Fantasy games, they're not real time combat. in most cases. They're turn based, so like you like not knowing the controls, like you have time to like figure it out and press a thing. It's mostly like menuing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good to know.
I would say like 10 is probably like one of the best. It's if you.
I really want to know which one I was obsessed with. It was like there.
Can you describe any of the characters?
I can. I'm trying to like. I can see them. It was like a girl. That sounds stupid, but like
she had boobs.
And then there was like water. God damn it! Hold on, I'm gonna.
Can you tell me what weapons they used? How they fought? Like.
I'm gonna Google it because my brain back from middle school is not. Oh. This looks like it. This one. I don't know which.
Yep, that's Final Fantasy X. Perfect. I told you.
Yeah. This one.
Yeah, that game's fucking beautiful. Dude,
the water scenes. That's what I'm talking about. The water.
And like, she's doing like a summoning.
I just remember being a kid. Yeah. And I was just like, what is happening?
The Final Fantasy X is a beautiful game. It's the last. I think it's the last one that was directed. I think by Tetsuya Nomura. He's the guy who did like the first 10 Final Fantasy games.
Okay.
And there's been like.
God, I mean, it was stunning.
It was beautiful. That's next time you chat with my brother, talk to him about Final Fantasy X. That's one of his favorite games too. He's been like really? he's been fighting with himself to try to play the game again. But like the game is just such an enormous time sink.
It's just like I wish they honestly if they made that into like a movie or like if I could passively digest it, I would. Like it was so stunning.
You could watch through it on YouTube. It'd probably eat up like 6 to 8 hours.
Don't tell me that. I'm probably gonna do that after this.
Oh no! See, like that's my thing. Like I love like recommending games and shit to people who like don't think they have the time for them. Like it's like watching through just like a trilogy of like telling somebody to watch through like the Harry Potter series or like half of it for like a game.
Yeah, I haven't watched a series of anything. I did just start Westworld season 3 2 nights ago because I needed again like something that would like allow me to like moderately dissociate from reality, but not in like a way that I was like this couldn't be real.
I'm pretty stunted with a lot of TV shows. Like
yeah,
I don't want to watch like anything new really. The only thing I'm trying to like keep up with are like Rick and Morty, which doesn't come out very frequently.
I've seen it actually.
Really?
My old roommates who were all dudes used to watch it, and
dudes watch Rick and Morty. It's a thing.
No, I know. I should. I think I tried one time. I can't really get. I also haven't seen Big Mouth, which I don't know if you watch Big Mouth, but I'm like I just can't get into cartoons for some reason. I just like need.
What about It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? Oh, that show's so good.
Didn't do it for me.
Scrubs?
No.
House. I'm very stunted, I think, from like most new TV shows, because most new TV shows are like 40 minutes, an hour long, and the only show I ever really did that with was House. I fucking loved House. I love Hugh Laurie.
I mean, I've like, if it was on, like I wouldn't watch it. I would turn it off.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like with
and listen to music.
Most TV shows, like you kind of get to pick now. Whereas, like, when I imagine we were...
Before, you had no choice.
Yeah. You're like, this show's on. I'm going to watch it now.
Yeah. Back then, because I grew up, I didn't have cable growing up. And so my choice was severely stunted. But what would come on, I remember I would come home from school every day, high school. And what would be on, there was like a channel that we got that was like, basically the reruns channel. And it would be... NCIS and CSI Miami. So I've seen all of those, like, and love those. Feel like a deep affinity and connection to those characters because it was like the only thing that was on. It was either like that or like game shows or like the news, and I would watch that from, like 5 to
oh my god
8.
Like thinking back, so like it's a weird thing knowing how many people consume video game media on like YouTube and stuff. But like when you think about it, going back like a decade or two. The only thing, like people watching game shows was essentially that same thing. Watching other people play a fucking game, winning money and doing shit.
Yeah.
While you were just like on your ass, like, oh, I know the words for fucking Wheel of Fortune. Like,
yeah. It's still a thing. Wheel of Fortune is still on. It comes on every Monday before, or I think it's every day, but at least on Mondays, I now started watching The Bachelor. LOL. With some gal pals. And which I've never watched Bachelor before, but now we have like Bachelor watch nights. And Wheel of Fortune is on before it every Monday. And it's so funny because I'm like, wow, we're still going. We're still going. Or no, it's Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy. One of the two.
But like Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, like American Idol, America's Got Talent.
Price is Right.
Price is Right. All of those things were...
All of those shows. Well, that's all American media actually centers around, right? Is this idea of like, we watch other people compete in things and we're like, well, we can
and
do that
succeed
too,
and like make this shitload of money and like imagining we can do... It's the same thing with video games,
that's
really.
Like episode like 3 of fucking the first season of Black Mirror. I think it's like episode 2 or 3, where it's like the people like compete to basically get out of like whatever like enslaved, you know, like, but the people like want to make it to the game show. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched Black Mirror.
I've watched a few episodes. I've never watched it like as seasons and stuff.
I've watched every episode and multiple
times. It's a very smart show.
But
it's a very smart like dystopian TV show.
Which I think that's what I like lean to. Like, if my brain doesn't feel stimulated, like I'm like this, like
you're
I can't really
high
passively
IQ.
watch TV. Like, you know, sometimes I'm just really smart.
You should watch Rick and Morty. It's a very high IQ TV show.
I should watch.
You should watch Rick and Morty. It's a very high IQ TV. It's a meme.
I feel like I know a lot of smart people that watch it, so I'm like, it has to have some sort of intellect involved. But no, I think there's like, we have this weird fascination. We as humans have this weird fascination with like watch people compete and like, while thinking at the same time like, oh, like we could do it too. And then like pining over this idea of like making it big, like hitting it big one day or whatever. And these shows just feed that.
This is something that's particularly interesting to me, like the way mindsets and like what passes as entertainment kind of changes. So like the last 4 or 5 years I've been living, I lived in China and now I'm living in Ukraine. Ukraine's a post-Soviet country and China is still communist. Like kind of what passes as something that's entertaining and what is, you know, something that like kind of motivates the person to like either continue watching something. They're very different. Yeah, like I wonder how well like game shows really would have flown in like, you know, a post-Soviet country with like most of the...
What would you say are like the popular like outlets or like shows?
I can't say anything about TV shows. Like my wife's grandma, she still watches TV pretty regularly. And she now tries like streaming it, but I don't know how much success she's been having with it. But she's been watching a lot of like those, like, you know, the like fascination pieces, like, why did you cut off your husband's penis? And like just interviewing like 30 people around it, as opposed to just asking like the guy and like, why did he cut? She was mad at me.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah, well, it's kind of like what was it? What did it used to be called? Like Dateline or like like those shows.
All these intrigue pieces. My weird. What the hell? It's like my weird.
I think those are always Friday night. Oh yeah, like TLC's kind of stuff. Yeah.
Like reality TV.
Or it's like I was pregnant and didn't know it. And it's like, how the fuck?
16 and pregnant. All these like weird reality TV.
That's different. So I think that's different than like the weird fetish or like that the guy ate things or whatever. And then, but then you have the like the teen mom 16 and pregnant, My Super Sweet 16, like those
Jersey
kinds
Shore.
of things. I feel like are separate categories. Yeah, reality. So there's actually a really interesting book of essays called Against Everything. That I highly recommend. I can't think of the author right now, but he has an essay about this. And hold on, I'm actually going to get it because I feel like it's very pertinent to the conversation because I read it and I was like, wow, this is exactly what, I think I left it in Texas.
I don't think we've, I don't think we've mentioned this, but the theme of tonight is everything is bad.
Everything is bad. Everything is bad. And this book of essays is literally called Against Everything. And he basically writes these critiques of everything because he's against everything. And it's phenomenal. But he has a series of essays. I remember exactly where I was. I was reading this essay while waiting in line for a freaking COVID test on my birthday last summer. But he has, I was like, I like exactly remember where I was. And I remember standing in line just like annotating. I annotate when I read. But he has this essay that basically talks about how like what trends in terms of entertainment and like TV mirrors like what we're experiencing as like a broader society, which like, okay, not the most novel of thoughts. But for example, like, you know, post 2008 recession, a lot of the shows, reality TV shows, and it's like, okay, correlation, causation, sure, I think it's causation, but like a lot of the shows were like storage wars, which I don't know if you ever saw that, but it was, you know, people like, oh, there's all these storage units that people can't pay for anymore. And then, oh, well, why can't they? Oh, because
the fucking show like flipped this house.
Fucking weird. Yeah. There's like so many of these things, and then it's like, okay, and then like right now, like we're obsessed with like the Kardashians, and like we're very much still in the Kardashian era.
I've never kept up with the Kardashians, so I actually don't know or give a shit. So
yeah, I have not kept up with them. But it's just like this idea of like, oh, it's a family unit and it's so approachable and like we're inside, but actually like it's you know, a lavish life based on like falsehoods, right? And concocted imagery. But the essay's incredible. I'm gonna find it and I'll put it in Mochi.
Cool.
But I think there's it's like a really, or you know, for me, like again, this idea of like these dystopian shows, like a Black Mirror or like a Westworld, where it's not fully sci-fi, like it's not Star Trek, like that doesn't do it for me. But it's this weird, it could be reality right now, but I'm not really sure.
It's very interesting. I wonder, you know, Tom Brokaw's The Greatest Generation. Like the whole like, you know, snootiness and bullshittiness of that. It's going to be very curious, like kind of date like to date our conversation, figuring out like we came like as internet became accessible to like the average person. Like before phones, like you could do everything that like a computer wish it could do in the 90s. I wonder how history is going to like characterize ourselves, because like we're now the generation that's recording itself constantly. We're the ones who are like publishing articles constantly about how to like change our lives, how to fix things, how things are broken. I wonder how much of like to me, one thing that's really big about humanity is that we are more or less like the first species, at least on Earth, that is self-aware, that is able to self-contemplate, and like that is part of like a universal thing where the universe is trying to understand itself. And as far as a generational thing within humanity goes, I wonder how much we are like taking leaps and bounds in regards to self-reflection. Whereas like, you know, the past generations, they could read books, they could listen to what's on the radio. Now we're able to siphon en masse shitloads of data and come to conclusions about ourselves in like mathematical ways, and figure out from there what's going to be next, what is going to be our next mathematical scientific breakthrough, you know?
Yeah. So it's interesting because I saw like a post, which I mean, this whole story, the anecdote in and of itself is like evidence of like what you just talked about. But like I saw a post that, you know, said something that was to the tune of like, you're miserable because you're basically too self-aware. Is kind of like what it said, where it's just like you're the source of your own misery because like you're being too self-critical and too analytical and you're reading too much into things. Like sometimes things just don't have meaning. And I loved that, because I think that like the extent to which we are like, there are some of us that I think are, well, and it's not even, I wouldn't even say it's self, like I think we could probably, I would categorize this almost as like the optimization generation, right? Where we're trying to like, we're either optimizing ourselves or we're optimizing our work, which is kind of optimizing ourselves, or we're optimizing our experiences with people, or we're optimizing our consumption, right? It's like, how can we like get more faster, better,
which,
you know, and synthesize
which technically
it, you know,
we kind
faster.
of like coalesce into what we perceive as ourself, like our relationships, our work, or, you know.
Exactly. But I think that there is going to be a point when I think we're kind of hitting it. Like, at least I feel like I've hit the not breaking point, but maybe like just like temporary ceiling of like, I feel like I've consumed read so much, been so self-aware. I was actually talking to Gabe about this a couple of weeks ago, where I feel like I actually don't want to do any self-reflection anymore. I don't want to do any more introspection. I don't want to read any more self-help blogs. I don't want to bookmark anything else. I don't want to watch anything else.
I don't want to make myself better.
I got to a point.
Like,
no, because it feels like
I'm never enough.
It's not actually exactly. And it's like, it feels like I'm never going to be enough. I'm never going to be able to consume enough, because the target is always going to be moving. But then it's also like, to what end?
Yeah, see, that's part of like what is broken about capitalism right now.
Yeah. This
whole idea of like this continuous growth is just growth on growth on growth without any like tangible measures of we have gotten there.
Right.
Like, we've accrued so much wealth with this. We are the U.S. is the wealthiest. I can't say we right now because I'm not in the fucking States, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's okay. We're all not even rich. We just have a fuck ton of debt that makes us look rich.
Yeah. Like
wealth is so subjective.
They've accrued so much fucking wealth, but at the same time, like, so many fucking people in the States are starving, and like so many people are homeless and can't afford a fucking $300 medical bill.
Right. It's like, so it's, again, to like what end? It's like, for example, like when we think about like introspection and like self-awareness, right? Like I know the lingo, the jargon, the buzzwords, right? Like the attachment styles, like, I've done so much fucking psychoanalysis that like, but then at the same time, so like I know when I am retreating, or like when I'm hermiting, or when I'm, reacting. Like I'm very so like I know when I'm doing things. But
on that note, real fast,
that awareness,
on that note, real fast, I've been like way hyper conscious about this for the past half hour, because my video is on like a slight delay. I notice how often I'm blinking, and it's bothering me. Sorry to distract. All right, go on.
That's good. No, be aware. But it's like it's like I can be super self-aware, but honestly, I feel like it just makes me more insecure, and I feel like I become hyper insecure in social settings and end up just retreating more, and then get into the spiral where I'm like, I live alone, and so last night I left, a group hang because I got really aware of how my body was reacting to like, how uncomfortable I was. So it's like, I'm just going to go back to like my safe place because I'm so aware. Really? Yeah. And then it's like, okay, cool. So then what? Like, I'm so self-aware that I'm going to just be alone, and then I'm going to be aware that I'm alone, and then I'm going to feel miserable, but then I'm going to feel like I don't want to be around people as like a dependency because I don't want to crutch because I'm codependent. Like, what kind of fucking spiral? But like, and the same thing with social media, going back to like our kind of social media conversation. Like, I have very mixed feelings on social media, and like I optimize because I had one of my first internships in college. I was like, it was the early days of social media marketing. And I was like the first social media marketing intern at this like startup marketing firm in Nashville. And this was back when like, it was just like, oh, can you just like throw some posts on Facebook or like, monitor or blah, blah, blah for these like marketing, like homegrown national marketing campaigns that are like barbecue contests and shit. But I like studied marketing, like digital marketing tactics and social media marketing tactics, and learned about, all the different like strategies and techniques and analytics and things like that. And then I subconsciously started applying it to my own social media, right? Like, how do I optimize, my engagement? Like, am I posting at the right time? Like, what are my conversion rates? Like, do I have really great engagement? Like, I'm posting like, my follower account is this, but my like count is this. Well, it's because I'm posting at this time, and maybe because I use this filter and people really actually like these kinds of photos. And then it's like, that has stuck with me for years. Literally, that was
it's like a weird like marketing PTSD.
Totally. And like, I will not ever be able to engage with social media from a personal capacity and not think about optimization. And that fucking sucks, because like, we'll just like shit post. Literally will be like, fuck, no one liked it. And then because I'm so self-aware, and I'm aware of like my relational traumas and my fears of being alone, it's like every fucking human is actually low-key afraid of, dying alone, that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm shit posting, or like I'm gassing myself up because I feel really insecure today, so I want to post a really pretty picture of myself, but oh my god, people are going to think I'm insecure, and I'm looking for clickbait, and I want people to think I'm really pretty, and I don't want people to think I'm vain, so I'm going to delete it. But then I already posted it, and then I deleted it, and people are going to think like, and I fucking spiral. And I'm like, ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
And I would return to ignorance, but I feel like I cannot.
I would say
like I can.
over this past like decade, that has been one of like the most like recurring mantras to me. The concept of ignorance is bliss. I don't know where it started, but like it just becomes more and more relevant as the years have gone on in my mind.
I think I want to revert to it, but it's like fucking Eve eating the fruit. I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah.
Like, I bit the apple, and I should not have bit the apple because I don't want to be aware, actually.
Fuck your apples.
I want to go back. Literally, fuck your apple. Like, Eve, I'm glad that you wanted wisdom, but guess what? Wisdom is not all that it panned out to.
No, she didn't want shit. It was Adam. Adam bit it because he's like, I want that. Hey, babe, check.
But she told him to do it.
No, she didn't. It was a snake. Oh, no, technically.
But I thought
no.
Snake tempted her.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
She did it. That's the whole thing. That's why women are bad, right? Because we made them do it. Whatever the fuck. Stupid shit. You know,
I'm a bad church boy.
Christianity. That's the next podcast. Stay tuned for part 2 there and talking about religion.
Well, welcome to our Mochi Podcast, where feel free to spiral out.
Yeah, literally.
Do you do like any sort of like therapy or anything?
Like, do you get help for your
Well, I mean, like, just
I do.
Me too. As part of like a generational thing.
Yeah, no, I did therapy. My first attempt at therapy was 8th grade. Mm-hmm. So post that first stepdad, that it was a really gnarly divorce, and I had, you know, my first kind of like trauma reaction, right? My family was like, you should go to therapy. And so they put me in therapy, and I chewed out the therapist. I basically was like, you're a dumb bitch. I'm not doing this. I'm completely fine. And we lasted, 30 minutes, and then tried again in college. Cause a lot of other things continue to happen. And I like to joke that my life's like a Lifetime movie. Like, name like a like whatever chaotic, thing that's probably happened to me or my family. So, tried to get in college, had 2 different therapists in college. Oh, my computer's going to die. Let me get my charger. I can continue talking.
Yeah.
Are we, have I run out of
no.
I feel like I've been talking
so
so
like I blocked off an hour and a half. We could go between like 1 to 2 hours. I think this is a good time to take like a 5-minute bathroom break.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Perfect.
Yeah, works for me. Do I mute? Do I pause?
No, I'll handle it. Don't worry. All right.
Okay, great. I am gonna mute.
Great time.
Don't we all?
I mean, kind of, sort of. But like,
Just don't apologize.
it's true. So I think before we went on break,
This is not your God complex.
I think before we went on break, we mentioned like therapy stuff.
Yeah, I was giving him my life story about therapy. TLDR, lots of attempts at therapy. I would say I have been consistently going now for 3 years.
Same therapist?
2 different therapists. So I had one therapist for almost probably split even. She went on maternity leave. It's like 1.5 years with one, Kelsey. And then so we were meeting, it would go from every week to every other week, and just kind of depending upon like need. And then she got pregnant. That was like, it was so funny. That was like such a traumatic therapy session, because I have like fears about like never getting married and never having kids and like wanting a family. And so when she told me she was
How dare you?
I didn't even know you were married. Literally, I started sobbing, and she was like, this is weird. So she left, and then I got a new one. And then I had the choice to like either stay with the new one or go back to Kelsey. And I actually like my new one. Her name's Kathleen. Kelsey and Kathleen.
You want to plug her? Do you have her Twitter?
Dude, I don't even know if she has Twitter. She's great though. Like, Kelsey was younger, which I think I have like kind of an issue with, honestly. Like, sometimes I can be a bitch. And I even told her, I was like, honestly, I'm vetting you to see like if you know what you're doing.
Just at the end of the session, I'm going to give you a grade, and I want this to weigh on your mind. Continue.
Basically, yeah. It was like, I'm gonna be like, you're in like test mode for a bit until like feel like you can actually like stand up to me, basically, and like push back on me. Because if you're gonna be a pushover and just kind of say like whatever I want you to say, or then you're not actually a good therapist. Like, you're not for me. Like, I'm a tough cookie to crack. Kathleen is a bit older. She's this like sweet, like Kiwi New Zealander, very mom vibes, like cool mom vibes. And yeah, I really like her a lot. We are usually bi-weekly. We've become weekly because of certain life circumstances in the past couple weeks. And that's great. And then I also have basically like a food therapist, she's like technically a nutritionist, but we talk about like food and eating and body image, because I am like recovering from disordered eating, which is super fun from my modeling days.
Sorry, I don't want to sound offensive as I like ask that.
You
really?
Like, for what?
Fascinating.
Yeah. my high school days. And that fucked me up. But excuse me, between that and dancing, if you want to ever fuck up your body image, your daughter's body image,
I know she didn't do any like child pageantry.
But no, yeah, seriously, it will really do it to you. So with her, it's like, excuse me, in the sense of like, oh, here's your diet plan, but like, let's unpack why you eat the way you do, or like why you feel the way about your body that you do, or like, you know, let's talk about like the systemic reasonings for, you know, our fat shaming culture, or like whatever. And it's phenomenal. So that's like dope. They kind of work in tandem, which is really great. Yeah, I love it. And yeah, like she's like my food therapist, my body therapist. So they're like kind of like my team.
Yeah, I've more or less also had like basically. I've also had like these weird body image issues of like always being too thin. Yeah, I'm yeah.
Which is so funny. Like,
yeah,
it's so invert for guys and girls. I'd say like I also acknowledge like other genders, but
absolutely. I mean, I absolutely know that I am the polar antagonist of like most like a lot of complexes, I would say. Like, I think I'm too good for a lot of things. I think I'm too talented for my fucking lifestyle. I don't know. But
yeah, no, I mean.
But in particular for like the body image things, I've always thought I'm like too thin. I'm not like athletic enough. And yeah, so like therapy for me right now has been a lot of like, so I got a reference from my wife's therapist, and it's just somebody who speaks English, and like she's pretty good. I think one thing that I'm curious about is where on your stance with so like with so assuming that there's going to be some sort of socialized healthcare, because I at this point it's close to feeling like it might be an inevitability, but I don't know. Where you think that kind of goes hand in hand with like therapists for kids, because like you've kind of mentioned that there are sometimes there are like therapists that just like it doesn't work with you. You don't feel like they're listening to you. You don't feel like they're on your level or whatever. But like it's the same thing with like the public school system where sometimes you're going to be in an area or with somebody that you can't necessarily just replace as easily because you don't have like you don't have the access to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question.
Because I personally believe that like everybody should have access to a therapist. It should be part of socialized healthcare. It's just there are these little like bits that I don't know what is like a proper solution, really.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like, I think to some degree, like that there are, so like my experience actually with my first therapist, I'm pretty sure it was like a government sponsored something. Cause like at the time, like we were on like full government assistance, cause we lost everything after the divorce. And like, I feel like it was like a government run facility, and it just like, I think like as someone who's like been in it, like who's experienced like when things are government run, like it's like it's like you can feel it, right? Where it's just like completely underfunded, understaffed.
That's basically what like the Joker movie was about.
Which I haven't. Whoops. Another thing I have added to my long list, but I don't know. So like. Let me try to compile my thoughts. Basically, like I think having it available will be great. Will every, government sponsored therapist be able to support people? No. However, I think what will be more beneficial, and that has been discussed. So one of my majors was like international development, and part of it was looking at like education systems and like education development. So like I love the intersection of like healthcare, education, like socioeconomic systems, and like like basically how those three kind of like interact together. But like education systems wise, like there are a lot of like innovative approaches to like mental health and wellness, like when it comes to like early childhood education. And so it's like almost like not necessarily even like mindfulness, but just like emotional awareness and like intelligence, right? Like teaching kids how to be like empathetic,
teaching them to not be shitheads.
There's a lot of things that could be integrated, right? And I think there's a lot of like early childhood education that can happen that is more around building skills, right? Like these like functional skills, and like around resiliency, right? Like there's the like fixed versus growth mindset, which like the Carol Dweck, which was like a really big thing in like psychological development. So I don't know if you've heard about this, but basically it's like kind of this model. And I think it came out in like the early 2000s, like 2005-ish kind of time. But like, basically you have kids that are raised with fixed mindsets and growth mindsets. So fixed mindset is your like I was very much a fixed mindset kid where it's like type A, if I fail, everything's going to crumble. I only focus on what I'm good at. I don't touch things that I'm bad at because like I can't fail. And that comes from parenting and how you're raised, right? And systems that, only value achievement versus growth mindset.
Constantly improving.
Like, you're not what you do. Well, not even constantly improving, just like, oh, you failed. That's okay. You can still learn. Like you can, it's like telling someone that like you're worthy despite your achievements, right? Or like, you don't like have to do these things. And so, it's like this like achievement culture versus just like, do you in a sense, right? Like the idea that like you're bad at piano, practice more, you'll be okay with it, versus like I'm bad at piano, I'll never be good at piano. Like
so like as opposed to like hitting milestones, it's more about the incremental growth and making sure you're getting like the added experience each time.
And just like and really just like for like a kid, like basically it's like they build resiliency through this idea of like a growth mindset, because it's like you continue to try, you may fail, but you try again, and like you're resilient. So you break up with someone, or someone breaks up with you, and like that's not the end of the world. Doesn't mean that you're a terrible person who will never get married ever. You know, it's like, oh no, just wasn't for you. Your resiliency increases versus fixed mindsets like, I did something, I'm broken, like I will never achieve this. And I think like the idea of like a growth mindset comes from a lot of like, proper like parenting, but I think also being taught that like you're like, you're not
it's crazy how much this sounds like it
gonna,
parallels a lot of like, you know, adult success stories for like Oprah Winfrey. She was like fired from like 3 jobs before she became Oprah Winfrey. Like it's weird how much we're like we have to actively try to learn that in our adulthood.
Yeah, because we weren't taught it. You know, like if you, and like that's the like a lot of therapy is what, you know, like the jargon is like unlearning, right? Like undoing. So it's like a lot of I'm unlearning these bad patterns or these bad behaviors. And for me, like the reason I achieved so much growing up and have gotten to a lot of places like I've been is because I have this like fear of like immense fear of failure, right? But so much so that like I have crippling anxiety and have a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? And it's like because like I just have this like deep down thing that like, oh my gosh, if I fail, like literally I'm going to die, or like everyone around is going to hate me and I'm going to be alone, or like whatever. Right. Whereas like I have friends who like like fail at random things all the time.
My friends are
and,
failures.
Like, have this, like again, this goes going to like attachment styles, like secure attachment. No, but it's like you fail at many things, but it's like you don't fail if you don't try. You know, that kind of cheesy thing, like shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. Like I literally had a bracelet, like that was like I was in space club. I was like a robotics space club in elementary school, and it was like a rubber, those rubber
fucking Armstrong, Livestrong bracelets.
But there was one, and I was a part of a quote, but they fucked up so bad by picking this part of the quote, but it literally said failure is not an option.
Oh my god.
No, literally. And I think it was like basically like it was kind of one of those like you can only fail if you don't try. It was like kind of the rest of the quote, but like they didn't put that on the bracelet. So I literally had a bracelet that said failure is not an option, and I was like,
it was a commercialized version of your own mental stress.
Totally. And like I was a kid, I used to just throw up. I would stress throw up, and then I would get stress hives, and I would get stress mouth ulcers because I was so fucking terrified of failing. And it's like, well, what that did was make me really hyper successful, but also really fucking neurotic, right? It's like really scared to do things that I didn't feel like I was good at. And then I had this kind of moment, basically like my senior year of college, where nothing worked out the way I wanted it to work out. I didn't get any of the jobs, any of the grad schools, any of the things. And then I had like a severe life crisis that honestly, like I'm still working through, of like, if I'm not my achievements, like what am I? And it's like, all of that in my mind, not all of it, but a good chunk of that could be remedied going back to early childhood education. If we teach kids like resiliency skills and teach them that like, you know, you don't have to be a fucking Fortune 500 CEO. You don't have to have straight A's. Like you may not learn in a traditional learning environment. You may not test well. I was lucky that I tested well and that I didn't have learning disorders or not disabilities. Like I was differently abled in terms of, it's like, I was fortunate. Like I was fortunate that I like was actually ahead of the curve. Like I skipped grades, right? But like, if I think about this all the time, it's like if I have kids, you know, I used to freak out about this when I was younger, but I was like, oh my gosh, like what if I have dumb kids? Which sounds really like mean. But I'm like, what if I have a kid that's not smart? Like what will happen? Like, and now I'm like, well, fuck that. I'm gonna find whatever works for them. Like maybe they want to go to trade school. Maybe they don't want to go to school at all. Maybe they're gonna be an artist. Like I don't fucking know. Like whatever, you know, it's kind of the same thing with like the conversation that people used to have around like having kids that have like Down syndrome or like severe autism, and like the early conversations around like, do you abort it, you know, which like maybe that's like a dark thing to say, but it's like people used to have those conversations. I remember like I worked a lot with special needs because I have a very special like place in my heart for working with like, again, differently abled children and like and adults. And it's just like, you know, what happens if that's you, you know, and like are you going to project your like fears on that? Obviously not. And like there are parents that do, right? There are like really sad situations, but also there are parents that are like, you know what, you have special skills, you are, you know, again, differently abled. And so like how do you define success differently, and like how do you raise that child to like not think they're a piece of shit? And then it's like how do you then again, like you can't really teach that if you don't believe that yourself. So I think there's like some interesting reflection that I think about all the time, again, when it comes to like how I want to raise my kids, my future kids, should I have them, knock on wood, like, to like, know that like you don't have to do all the things that like I thought I had to do to like, which I think a lot of my I have to do these things comes from my background, which like Gabe and I have talked about a lot, of like coming from the families that we come from, and like basically kind of being like trailblazers and the first to do a lot of these things, and like feeling I have
my brother, I remember, so like at least in high school, his goal was to be a neurosurgeon. Yeah, apparently.
Really?
I don't know.
Why?
Because it was the epitome of like what was success defined by an Asian. short of being the mathematician that like solves the universe. It's the thing.
Right.
It's the thing that gets your parents off your back.
Yeah, totally. And it supports your family, and kind of like secures a lifestyle, and like
it's less that it's like, the prestige. It's like it's the honor that it brings upon like the family, and it validates the parents. It validates their struggles.
So like so that's an interesting thing when it comes to culture, which I know can be like a buzz for people. Even though like I'm mixed, I was only raised by
if you don't mind me asking, like what is your ethnicity?
Black and white. So my dad's black, my mom is white, and I was only raised by my mom, and she's white, and there really wasn't.
Sorry. Is there any like prominent like German, Italian kind of raising, or is it just like generic American white?
We're like 8th generation Texan.
Pretty white.
We're, like,
okay,
pretty
gotcha.
White. There's not. None of us have done like a pure ancestry, but like in terms of like a DNA test. But like when we do like our genealogy, like we've been in Texas / America for like a while. I think we have like some Creole, like some like Louisiana like French, but it's like 10 generations back.
Those are the generations that we don't really want to look too closely at.
We don't want to look at it really, many of them, because they're freaking, I'm from Texas. So I used to joke with my mom in a really twisted way. I was like, oh my gosh, Mom, what if my white side owned my black side? And she was like, don't joke about that. And I was like, it's kind of funny, because like I'm the first like drop of brown in the family. And then my aunt had my 2 cousins after me. So like my 2 cousins are kind of like my little sisters. We're like each like 3 years apart, and they're mixed too. And it's so funny. So basically like there's not going to be any more white people in my family, like pure white. Like we kind of stopped it because like we're the only 3 grandchildren.
That's an achievement, I'd say.
So I'm like, we're all black now. Yeah, it's really funny. That's a whole like race and different thing. But I would say, going back to like the making the parents proud thing, like I never really had that. Like my family was like pretty hippy dippy, pretty artists. Like none of them went to college. I was the first to go to college, and like they were like, oh wow, Ariana's really smart. It was like, yeah, we want her to go to college and have a better life, but never like be a lawyer, be a doctor, make us proud. Like it's like they were proud of me being in the school musical. Like it was like they're honestly, they were kind of disappointed that I didn't do more creative endeavors actually. Like that I gave up dancing and that I gave up musical theater, because like they're all creative hippies. But it's interesting because like I didn't have that pressure of being like first gen, either college or first gen American, of like go make a lot of money. And like I've always put that pressure on myself, because I wanted to have such a different lifestyle than what my family has. And so it's funny because like my mom, like I remember like when my anxiety stuff, because like I've had really, really, really bad bouts with anxiety. And I remember like she used to be like, where is this coming from? Like, because she never, I used to ground myself. Like I would come home with a B, and I would literally like lock myself in my room, and I like wouldn't let myself eat dinner, and I'd be like, and she's like, what's your deal? And I'm like, I gotta be. And she's like, that's okay. And I'm like, no, I need to do better. Like I would ground myself. And she like never really disciplined me. Like I was like the star kid. Like she never had to do anything. Like I had a smart mouth sometimes,
but it's because you were smart.
Exactly. But like even like when I went to college, it was like her whole thing was just go to college. She had no discussion of major. But she didn't have that stereotypical like doctor, lawyer, which I feel like a lot of immigrant families and parents have, of like doctor, lawyer, engineer. It was just like do what makes you happy, which like I probably won't say that to my kids if they go to college. I'm like, I go back and forth. I'm being like, I'm gonna be empathetic, but also I'm like, don't fucking be a fucking humanities major like I would. Like I'm like, you need some kind of practical skills. Like my majors feel very impractical now. But yeah, it's interesting because like I think a lot of what motivates me is just
that you mentioned
yeah,
that it's like it's interesting because like, you know, technically speaking, we are moving away from the traditional campus college. Like honestly, COVID might be the fucking nail in the coffin for this traditional learning style, and really just like the pandemic shit, like the amount of the arts that we've needed to stay sane. It's like, you know, we also still have these like same like, you know, internal standards of like what is succeeding, what is living, but those are also still based in like this neo-capitalist mindset of like you need to constantly be making, you need to be accumulating wealth, you need to be innovating on new shit, you got, otherwise you're wasting your fucking time and you're wasting my time, and I can't believe I pushed you out of my vagina. Like
Yep.
I'm also like, constantly having these discussions with my wife about like, if we had kids, if we are to have kids, like what do we want to kind of improve upon, you know, the things that we had grown up with, what are the different mindsets that we've had, and like it's not always it's always like a tricky conversation. Like I would
totally. How do you guys feel? Like do you differ?
I think we both have like difficult growing we've had difficult periods like growing up, and like our the reasons they were difficult are like crazy different. Like my parents, a lot of it was like them by being minorities in a new country. My parent or her parents were like being just in a not happy relationship, and neither of them having the coping mechanisms to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so like we're both trying to figure out like what is the best way to like, you know, kind of deal with these things for ourselves, and then also if we were to like pass down information or like have somebody else grow up in shoes better than ours. Like the whole thing of like the past generation, I want our kids to grow up with a better situation than we had, and then like bitching about them being in new shoes. Like I can't believe they're eating I can't believe they're eating healthy. I can't believe they're like worrying about their financial health. No. We didn't have to do that. That was stupid.
I know. Well, even like my family, it's really interesting. Like to that point, when I went to college, like it was the first time leaving my family. It was the first time being around, like, really, I mean, genuinely, like 1% wealthy. Like there was a New York Times study that showed that Vanderbilt has more kids of the 1% than like all the Ivy Leagues. It's like a weird thing. It's like, you know, it was a culture shock, and basically like I started to like resent my family. I was like, why didn't you guys go to college? Mom, why did you have me, you know, as a did you like, why are you guys and I built up like all these like questions and resentment, and was like, what the hell? And then, you know, then I started going on trips with my friends and doing this and dressing a bit different, and then I would come home, my family would be like, you changed, like you don't like us anymore, you think you're better than us. Like they started to resent me. And then I was like, well, you guys fucking wanted me to go to fucking college. Like, you guys did this. Like, what do you want me? Like, I don't like, it was just like so confusing. And like, I still have some moments where it's like, you know, like I have to work. And now it's like after a lot of years of therapy, like I realized like that's just like a lot of their insecurities flaring up. But like, I still have these conversations with my mom where like, I would go to my friend's Hampton's house, you know, and then my mom would be like, oh, we'd get into an argument. We fight like sisters, because, you know, she had me so young. We're more like sisters and mom and daughter. And she'd be like, oh, sorry that, you know, I don't have a Hamptons house. And I'm like, bitch, I didn't say you had to have a Hamptons house. I think you did a great job. Like, do you want me to have friends that have this kind of wealth and to like be exposed to these kinds of things, like, or not? Like, pick a fucking stance, because like I can't keep feeling guilty that like I'm abandoning the family or that where I come from. Or
I think it's also partly like you know, you're watching that TV show, but you're also able to talk to the actors. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, it's
And for them, and again, yeah, it flares up all these kinds of things for them. And like, it's funny because of my personal work, like I basically got so she's kind of like starting her therapy journey, and kind of having some of the revelations that I had years ago of like of self-awareness. But it's really interesting, just like having, like this, like, but again, going back to our point of like, how much is too much? Like, I don't want to be like a cripplingly self-aware parent who like makes their kids psychoanalyze themselves.
Yeah, you don't want to
either.
You don't want to be like one of those parents that's like, oh, I am expecting you to change your gender identity every single year since you are at least year one.
Right. Like self-identify everything. It's like, sure, there's like a point to which that is the case, but it's also like, you do need to have some, like, don't be so afraid of being too hands-on that you're so
for me,
hands-off that it's like,
for me, like, if we have kids, like, I want them to learn an instrument. I want them to be able to read and do math, and I want them to be able to fight. Like
back to
I mean, I'm really motivated by a lot of like video games and anime and shit, but like, to be able to make decisions for yourself, you need to be able to defend yourself and kind of like fight for what you believe in, either physically or metaphorically. And like, in both those cases, both the physical and the metaphorical, you're able to gain that discipline in both cases, in doing different martial arts, in doing like crafts, arts. Like, I think those are the big things to me. Otherwise, like, it's just like me trying to figure out like how am I supposed to cope as a parent, Because like my kid, they're gonna fall into it one way or another. But like I have like I have the foresight. Like how am I supposed to plan for this? How am I supposed to know that I'm gonna be ready for this stuff?
Right. Yeah. No, it's super.
Again, we are the generation that like you have to be aware. You have to be self-aware of this. Otherwise, you're doing a shitty job. Not just in like the public eye, but in your own like, paranoid freaking out mind.
Totally. Yeah. It's it's a lot. It's a lot to think about.
Welcome to 2021. Just a reminder, everything is bad. Yeah.
Oh man.
Good times except for everything.
What else do we have on the plate, on the agenda? Good times is a euphemism for bad times.
What do you say are like your big hopes for like maybe the next 5 years? Either in your life or in like the life of the world,
Wow. That's a good question. 5 years. I feel like I can't even think 5 days from now. I mean, like, family is very important to me. I would like to be in a very committed relationship that is like on the path towards marriage by the end of 5 years. Just like biologically timeline. So, integrating that into the conversation, and also just like, that is something I deeply do want. And that's, I've been thinking about that a lot lately with like, I've had some like work transitions and different things, and a lot of friends getting married, a lot of friends starting to have kids, and it's just like, oh wow, that seems like
I'm lucky to have dodged that bullet.
Yeah, I know. I'm envious. I'm like, tell me your secret.
I stumbled into it. I had a wonderful personality, and I was already technically making money.
I check those boxes. It's because I live in New York, honestly. It's what my mom says, which is kind of true. New York is not the place to find a long-term partner, I don't think. But anyway, that would be really great. Another hope. I think like for like a society-wide hope, I think I would like us, as I will say, Americans, and more broadly, to continue the like grassroots organizing, community-led like efforts, initiatives in terms of like
not just all politics, like big guys in the smoky back rooms politics.
Yeah, no, because I think like what we saw like with a lot of the George Floyd with COVID, there were like these mutual aid type initiatives popping up, and I think people are seeing the value of like investing in the local community and like on a smaller scale, and maybe what it means to have people run for local office, or, you know, just even be like hold people accountable and like learn systems. I would really like that trend to continue. Because I think we all had a crash course basically
absolutely
in politics last year. Again, when it comes like everything from like the election itself to again like healthcare systems and like how our systems are so interconnected, right? Like with COVID, we're like, oh my gosh, like essential workers and not making enough money, and, you know, the spread of a virus and housing, and like we all saw the like the interconnectedness of these systems and are like definitely more aware. And I hope that that continues so that like the change can truly be systemic, and that we all feel like a collective responsibility. Like I hope that COVID, I think for some, I mean, you obviously saw huge splits, right? People were like, I can escape to my Hamptons house and, you know, fly on my private jet to Miami for New Year's and, you know, do whatever the fuck I want, fuck everyone. But then I think for the rest of us, the masses, it was like, oh yeah, we're all kind of connected, and like we all, you know, like maybe we should have a shared responsibility. But also not only like step one is like we have a shared responsibility. Step two is like, what can I do about it? And like step three is continuing it in a sustainable way. And so I feel like we've definitely evolved some. I don't want to say we, like I don't want to make blanket statements because I think some haven't, but I hope that like kind of 3-step continues, and that we all
I would say we're like realistically speaking, like as far as the US goes, it's definitely like a stage 2, stage 3 of like the labor movement, which more or less died with Martin Luther King Jr. It's just like, you know, figuring out how to like not let that get co-opted by what is, you know, the trend of capitalism to like to eat it up and sell it back to the people. It's what happened with hippies. It's what happened with punk. It's what happened with rock. It's what happened with emos, with rap, hip hop.
Yeah. Against Everything has some great essays about that. Actually, you need to get the book. Okay. Everyone should read the book Against Everything. But it has some essays about that, of just like the co-opting. He literally has an essay on like the not even the evolution, but like the like what is a hipster, and like what is a hipster? How is the hipster movement again been co-opted, and like what is the alt space now, right? Like what, and like and it's so fascinating to read an essay like that like talks about hip. You're like, what? And then you read it and you're like, it's true. But yeah, I think what it will be more challenging for these systems to co-opt it when people, and this is kind of almost an antithesis to what I was saying earlier of ignorance is bliss, but it's like it'll be more challenging to get co-opted when people have the awareness and the knowledge to like know when it's happening and to challenge it. Because I think for a long time, like a lot of the systems became really like muddied and, you know, subdued and were hidden. And then with the, you know,
it's harder to hide
social media
a lot of shit,
and you know, it's so much harder to hide.
I think part of it becomes like the new literacy of being able to sift through what is the bullshit.
Exactly. It's no longer production of content, it's curation of content, and being able to discern like what is relevant and what is authentic, you know, now that we're having these fucking disinformation conversations, and you know, you're deep at Gabe, you know, it's like we have to like be, and I know he like really started that conversation around, you know, kind of combating he's like more chaotic good, you know, he wants to combat the chaotic evil, but like we have like there has to be a literacy around that, and you know, so there is like some kind of not even subset, some baseline knowledge that has to happen. But I also think it's fucking tiring. Like that's one of the things when I talk about like local politics, like I have a lot of friends that are very involved in politics. Like literally one of my friends is on the Joe Biden Instagram. One of my friends is in like the back of the fucking Instagram video. Like he is like chilling like with them. And it's like I talk to him and other people about this all the time, where it's like, I have a good podcast that relates to this that I will also share. Like links below. Where basically it's like the default argument, the scapegoat is like, oh, people are lazy and people are dumb and people don't want to get involved and like fuck Americans or like whatever, like the masses are so blah blah. It's like
and there's so much shit that you need to combat. Like imagine responding to every single fucking stupid post on Facebook, like, and having to do that, otherwise you lose the debate.
right. And it's like, or like, oh, like get involved, like someone screaming at you to vote or someone screaming at you to get involved in local politics, but you have no clue what to even
Yeah.
Google or who your representative is, let alone show up and picket and demand change when you don't even know what systemic change needs to happen to change labor policies, because like you didn't fucking study like labor economics. So like, how are you supposed to know? And it's like, there needs to be some like grace and people to like be more involved. It's like, well, what tools are we giving them to do that? So I think there's going to be like the
Absolutely.
process, and but like we're getting like we're moving towards it, which is really exciting. Like I've seen, there's been so much like this past year, 2020. While it was a fucking wash,
Mulligan, redo.
ways, I think it was
do
really,
it or change
really
it.
productive. Yeah. So 2021, I think we now have like we experienced it. It was like a fucking crash course, right? Like baptism by fire.
That's literally how 2020 started.
And now,
funny fucking Australia.
Literally. Yeah, no, I mean, it was on fire all year, right? Like, they didn't stop. The fires did not stop California. Like, but it's like now 2021, it's like, okay, so like we now know how to fucking hold cops somewhat accountable. And we now, know how to how to organize, right? We saw what happened in Georgia. So we now know how to organize communities.
We now know how easy it is to fucking breach the Capitol building. Christ.
So, which would not advise again. But like, it's like, we've studied it. We now know. And we need to continue that momentum. But I do think there's going to have to be a conversation again back to like what we're talking about, like in terms of like
what is meaningful education,
right? It's like, right. So it's like, so some people are like, cool, why should I fucking care about my community? I just want to make money. Like that is still fucking rampant, right? And so it's like, how do we combat that? And like, how do we change the definition of success and value so that people don't feel like that's their only option or that is like the best option? Because like, even if we provide people with all the tools in the world and they still say like no thanks, then nothing's gonna happen. So it's like, how do we make people invested? I don't know. Without like, because I'm like, that's a whole different kind of thing that I'm like, I don't know what people need to get smacked in the face with to feel like they should do something about the ills of the world. Because like fires don't do it, 400,000 people dying doesn't do it, like starving kids in Africa doesn't. I'm like, what the fuck does it for you? Like, I continue to rant.
Perfect. I mean, there's plenty to rant about. Remember, 2021, everything's bad.
I know. Everything is bad.
I think for me, like, I don't know. I'm still optimistic about like. I believe there are more people that are good in the world. There are more people who are good trying to do good in the world than there are people who are just genuinely bad. There are a lot of like fucked up people who are like, just trying to get their leg up. But I don't think there is enough evil to outpace the good that good people are trying to do.
That's a nice thought.
It's ambitious and many would say naive.
I don't think it's naive. I think what concerns me with that equation, and sometimes I think of things in terms of equations, is like, I think the power imbalance. So like, sure, there may be more people that want to do good, but there are the few people that want to do bad. I feel like
and the tools that they wield are more like less measured, and you can use a hammer. You can use any size hammer to like break down a door, but you need to use specific tools to fix it.
Totally. And then I also think the amount of people that are neutral, because I do think, it's like, it's not one or the other. Like there is a gray space, and I think the mass majority of people are in that gray space. And I think, it's kind of like the MLK quote where it's like, if you're like, neutral in the face of injustice, right? Like you're basically on the side of the oppressor. It's like, I think in a lot of ways, like that's true, because it's like, if you like, sure, if the masses, the masses have the potential to tip the scale in the favor of good, and like can maybe, if they don't even have the same tools, they still have the by sheer majority like number can tip the scale in terms of good. But it's like right now, like with the way, in my mind, the way the scales are tipped, it's like, it feels like the system is so rigged. that there would be, we would need to get a huge contingency of the neutral to transition over, be active, and like we would need to fucking cooperate and collaborate. Right? Instead of, like,
this is definitely one of the things that like the good need to do. There needs to be like a lot more like deliberate organization. One of the reasons like why the labor movement and the civil rights movement in like the 60s 70s worked so well is because they were like deliberate, picking their fights, choosing their battles, defining their icons and who's going to be like doing what. And right now, like, you know, with like the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, who are we rallying behind? What specific thought? There are so many people who have so many different ideas of reform, but it's like, you know, trying to identify which stream in the river is going to pull you down the fastest to get to the destination you want. Whereas, you know, any other thing could bring you down another tangential stream to wherever else you're trying, somewhere you're not necessarily aiming for, and you just might end up there.
Yeah, totally. So it's not that I think that it's not possible. I just am. I think I've seen.
We lack the focus. I must say.
Yeah, and like it's like I like it is so depressing. Like what wealth, and power can do. That, you know, that's beyond like, oh, a jet, but it's actually like, you know, skewing agendas and policy. You know, it's like it's so deeply rooted.
Yeah, sorry about all the metaphors, but like, man, you can be like the salmon leading all of the other salmon to the correct place, but then a rich person could just build a fucking dam there.
Totally.
Metaphors.
And then the salmon don't even know there's a dam. They're salmon. They don't.
The Earth is flat. Who's gonna build this here?
And then. Yeah, it's like yeah, it's I really like that metaphor. It was really good. No, it's true. It's like, come on, everybody, and it's like, you're a fucking salmon. You can't fucking barrel through a dam. It's like, no, you need people that aren't people that aren't salmon. That sounds stupid, but we need to
follow the moon. But the moon doesn't exist. We've never been to the moon. We don't know the moon.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, you need a flip. It's like, because there are people, again, in the neutral space that have the tools, aka, in my opinion, money and influence,
or just an audience,
to build their own fucking dams. They just need to stop being pansies and need to stand up for something.
There's also the problem that being like the troll or being chaos is fun, right?
It's a very, I'm like, is that a Toomless thing you would get? Or is it just
no, it's like, it's fun to be chaotic. It's fun to just disrupt like the flow of either good or evil, and it's just so often that being the chaotic nature like it works in favor of the evil and the negative, you know. Yeah. And you know, we like fun.
Or it's like a not even QAnon, actual non, you know, like that's pretty like chaotic good in my opinion. You know,
they haven't done anything in a while.
Yeah,
it's been more or less co-opted by QAnon.
They're there. It's quiet. Yeah, but they're definitely like, they haven't done. I mean, there were a couple last summer. They did some like more public like attacks or like leaks or whatever, but they still like reveal stuff, you know, which I think is good. But it's like, what do you do with that information? Yeah. But yeah, it's tough. And then part of me is like, I just like want to chill instead of thinking about the demise of society. Like my brain. And then there are people who like don't think about these things, who do not. There is no impending doom. This at all. Again, ignorance is bliss. And I'm like,
America is great again. We just need to bring Trump back.
You don't think about this all day long. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I'm like, how can you, like, you can just watch Schitt's Creek all day and then that's it? Like,
can you leave on a positive thought?
I can. I'm
Pizza's fucking dope.
That's really positive. I remembered I dreamt about pizza, and it just
everybody order a goddamn pizza.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a what is it, like the chicken bacon ranch pizza.
I feel that more in a calzone, not as much in pizza, but I dig it.
That's okay. To each their own. Positive, no. I don't know. I mean, I think like Mochi is a great example, plug Mochi, you know, of a community that is starting to have these kind of conversations and is putting together, you know, the collective energy and some of these things. And I think there is a hope. Yeah, even though I'm such a downer. But no, I do think
It's okay. Everything's bad.
everything. Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, but again, it's like what we alluded to this earlier, where it's like if you can't intensely critique, then you are not invested.
Yeah.
And so like all of these critique, fears, and worries are because I'm heavily invested, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like my ability to articulate all of these things is because I want it to improve, believe that it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like to be able to convert that fear into some productive and not get paralyzed by it, which I have.
That reminds me of like a Jon Stewart thing from like the original the Daily Show before. Like, yeah, he had this quote like, it's not that I want more government. I don't want bigger government. I criticize it because I want better government.
Yeah. Like if you were unable to critique, then like you can't.
It's more or less the point of journalism. It's to hold people accountable and to like make informed improvements.
Totally.
Yeah.
In a way that is digestible and actionable, or it can point to something that it can lead to action, because it's like if you're just writing fucking shit posts to that, then it's just clout or money.
Yeah,
or not motive.
Being the troll can only feel good for so long before you just like you get sucked up in your own trolling. Yeah. Well, Ariana, thank you for being my first guest. Thank you for being the guinea pig of the Mochi podcast.
I know. We'll see how this
yeah
goes, what this turns out.
All right. That's going to be the end of first podcast. If you like this, follow us on the I'm going to create an Mochi channel. Ariana, you can also join this eventually.
Like, follow, subscribe.
I don't have I have a Twitter thing that I can wait, where is that?
What's your Twitter? Oh, there it is.
Boom. Wait, did I? Damn it. Hold up. Boom. Yeah.
I see it on one screen.
There you go.
Oh,
okay.
There we go.
Have a good rest of your day.
Monday, everyone.
Yeah. Happy Monday.
Yeah.
All right. Adios.